Ready. I think I wanted to just start where you ended, which is on the embers all around us and what the leaders in Chicago did to rebuild. You talked a lot about your record and what you've done, but I guess I'd ask you to just step back and discuss what you think we should be doing going forward. Or how does your experience in Illinois, what do those experiences tell us about how we can have a vision for the future?
Well, I think I mentioned to all of you, and I want to be clear, I mean, we were in pretty dire straits. And we had $17 billion of unpaid bills when I came into office. We had a Republican governor who essentially refused to sign a budget, so 2 years without a budget, longer than any state in the nation ever. And we had no rainy day fund. Think about the pandemic that was to come. No rainy day fund. We hadn't balanced the budget in years in Illinois. And we had the lowest credit rating in the nation, pension challenges. I mean, the list goes on. So, by the way, there were lots of people who said, you don't want to be governor of Illinois. The problems are too great. You're going to have to declare bankruptcy or something. There isn't bankruptcy for a state, I might add. But, you know, when I think about what we were facing, I mean, it was pretty daunting. I think the thing that has gotten us through that is focusing on working families, focusing on lifting up. You know, what is it that people really want? The challenges that people are facing at the kitchen table are the very challenges that the Democratic Party is best at addressing. And we have better ideas. And I'll just throw, you know, just one. And there are many that I'd love to talk about. Maybe we'll get a chance. But why are we not all screaming about the $7.25 minimum wage in this country? No one can live on it. We Democrats are the ones who, we believe in lifting up people, right? $7.25, $14,000 a year, you can't raise a family on, you can barely live on yourself. In fact, I don't think you can on your own. $7.25. If you ask Republicans what their view on the minimum wage is, they'll give you one of two answers. They don't want to raise it, or they wish there wasn't a minimum wage. Now, what a contrast. We're a party that believes in a living wage for people. And they're a party who believes in lowest cost labor is best, what for them and for Elon Musk and the people they represent. So I really believe that if we center ourselves, and we have in Illinois, on what's best for working families, what's best for the middle class, what's best for the most vulnerable people in our society, that is where Democrats belong, right? Guess what? Elon Musk doesn't need a lot of help. But that child who's been abandoned, the child who's in foster care, that family that lost their job, or the family that's just challenged to make ends meet and living paycheck to paycheck, that's who we represent. And, by the way, folks who just want to get ahead, they want success, they want opportunity. We believe in that. We ought to be, by the way, the party of small businesses. Why are we not the party of small business? We ought to be the party of small business, helping people. This is the next. Once you've got a job, you get a promotion, you're doing well at your work, the opportunity to get ahead by building some capital, some equity for yourself going forward is something there are a lot of people who want. And we ought to be making that easier for people to get. Instead, I think the Republicans try to convince people that they're the ones who stand up for job creation and economic growth. We should be the party that stands up for job creation and economic growth and helping people get a better wage.
Great. So I'd love to just follow up on that, because I think a lot of people might ask, how do we differentiate from some of the things we've done in the past? And you've talked about really tangible benefits to people, access to college, prescription drugs, and maybe that's a way to differentiate from some of the efforts that we've made in the past in terms of trying to be really communicate what we're doing for working class people. So beyond the minimum wage, it'd be great if you could share like tangible things you've done in Illinois to
Sure.
improve the lives of working class people.
Okay, so let's, talk about, I think, the three big things, and there probably each of us could add a fourth and a fifth big thing that really matters in people's lives, right? Being able to get a good education. It's got to be, when you think about the future, your prospects for getting a good job and a better wage, right? Having a good education for your kids, for yourself, the ability to improve your own standing. Education, we should be investing in education. And in Illinois, since I've come into office, we put $2.5 billion more into public education. And we've focused a lot on our community colleges. We have the third largest community college system in the entire nation. It's one of the best in the country. And those community colleges are partnered with businesses in their regions. Again, we have 48 of them across the state of Illinois. In those regions, those businesses are asking community colleges to create the programs that will help them get the workforce that they need. And then we're focused also on what's the future workforce need to look like. In Illinois, for example, we're making big investments in quantum. And that workforce, it's going to look different, but it needs to start in high school, in community college, in universities. It's not about, creating scientists who are inventing the next new quantum technology necessarily, but all the jobs that get created by the new world that we're going to live in by virtue of the investments that we're making. So education is hugely important. And we've made the investments in Illinois that will make a difference. We have some of the best universities in the entire world. Second, healthcare. First of all, I hope that the message of the Democratic Party, and certainly my message is, we're for universal health care. Everybody should have a doctor. It's just like when I talk about early childhood, which I won't jump into now, but this is, when you make investments in early childhood, you're actually saving money over the long haul. The investments you make in those early years, the investment you make in people's health care and keeping people healthy, it's one of the reasons the Affordable Care Act is so successful, right? That it focused on that kind of preventative care. Making those investments has been hugely important. In Illinois, when I showed up in office, there were 140,000 Medicaid applications that the prior governor had just let sit there, like unprocessed applications. People who really need health care, unable to get health care just because, well, if you slow it all down, it's almost like what Elon Musk is trying to get our government to do now, but we went through it, 7 years ago, 8 years ago. So health care to me it's a right. It's also good for our society and, very importantly, I think good for our economy. If you want to be fiscally responsible, keep people healthy that live in your state. So healthcare, and we've made those investments. Not only do we process those 140,000, but we've also changed the way we deal with healthcare. For example, I don't know how many of you have had the experience of prior authorization, seeking prior authorization for some kind of insurance. You hope your insurance company will cover some kind of condition. They demand prior authorization on so many important things, including emergency mental health. Now think about this, and I have a friend who called me to tell me his personal story, that his daughter was having a mental health crisis. She, in fact, one night tried to commit suicide. And he obviously called an ambulance. They were in an ambulance together on their way to a hospital that had a care unit for people who had mental health issues. And he had to call his insurance company to get prior authorization to allow her to check into this hospital. They rejected it. Now, what are you going to do? Your daughter just tried to commit suicide. It really chokes me up. What would you do if you couldn't afford otherwise? He happened to know somebody at the hospital, and so he called and said, I am going to make sure that they cover me. I promise you, I will write the check myself if I need to or work it off. But please let us come. And they did. Now, eventually, he got the insurance company over the next 24 hours to do the right thing. But we have now made it illegal in Illinois for insurance companies to deny emergency mental health care. And then I'll just give a third one, and we'll move on. But education, healthcare, look, job creation. Let's talk, you know where most of the jobs come from. They don't come from large businesses. We should be helping large businesses continue to be successful. But most jobs that get created in our society get created by small businesses and startup businesses. And there are a lot of people with really good creative ideas. And some people will start businesses and fail. That's true. But there are also a lot of businesses that get started that succeed, and wildly so. I often remind people that the big name companies in Illinois that you can think of, John Deere, for example, Navistar and others, those companies were small startup businesses at some point. Now they're huge employers in the country and in the world, but they were just startup businesses at one time. And especially our party, we ought to be helping people get started in business. We ought to be helping because it creates jobs. The idea that someone's going to build capital and plant it right here in the United States because they're a U.S. citizen, because they believe in wherever it is that they live, or that's where they're going to create the business. We ought to be, that is, in my view, something that should be fundamental to our society. Now, Donald Trump doesn't believe that. Donald Trump is all about the largest business owners and the wealthiest people and doing what's easy and best for them, and not thinking about the little guy, the small business that's just getting started, and how are we going to make it easier for them. So I just think, and when I think about these things, the philosophy difference between our parties is so great. We need to present it properly to people. We need to make sure people really understand what the Democratic Party is all about. But it is about lifting up people who want to get ahead, or standing up for people who are most vulnerable or who are being discriminated against.
Thank you.